好，那接下来呢，就让我们来欢迎Ana来为我们做演讲，谢谢。
Good morning, everyone. Early afternoon. So, I'm Ana. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. I'm going to be taking you through a journey, a little bit of my insight, my methodology. I particularly like very boring things. And I'm going to say a little bit about what I've worked on and how my methodology has evolved. So I've had the great fortune to have worked for some very iconic companies, one right after another. Adobe, Apple, Theranos, Sony, starting my own two hardware startups, Samsung, and now Facebook. And I've learned quite a bit. I've learned a lot about, the aftermath of receiving awards. I've learned about the pressure that it means to create such an impactful piece of an object that lives in our world. And I think that we need to approach designing products very differently these days because of the huge social impact. Most recently at Samsung, I was working on a particular experience called The Frame. And it was us re-envisioning what a blended home could be like and will become like by blowing apart a traditional, huge, valuable space of real estate in one's home, a black rectangle hanging on a wall or sitting on a beautiful piece of furniture. We wanted to make sure that even in its off state, even in its sleep state, it delivered value, it delivered delight, it delivered excitement and was additive to one's lives. Thus, we were displaying contemporary art and a variety of other new content subscription aspects. So with this in mind, my methodology of designing for both myself and in my daily job with my teams, I like to consider the aspect of trust. Trust is very important. It's precious, and it's something not to be unconsidered. It's something we must, as designers, put into the forefront of our planning about creating objects that we introduce into one another's lives. As designers, as content strategists, as engineers, as business people, we must consider trust. And the talk I'm going to give with all of you today, I like to say, is a dance of love and deep empathy. What does this actually mean? So, we have the responsibility to ensure that from our inception, our earliest sketches, our earliest ideations and thinking and dreams, we have the responsibility to make sure that what it is that we give birth into this world as an object, as a service, as an experience, really holds true to the next generation. I'm a mother of 3. This is my oldest daughter. She's an alpha generation. I have a 15, a 14, and an 8-year-old. And I need to think about what it is that I, as a designer, as a creative, bring into this world that will affect them. If I think back in history to when we were designing the original iPhone, none of us thought that it would be as addictive, as intrusive in our lives as mobile phones have become today. Originally, we were doing it because we wanted to have the real web in the palm of our hands. But now, how many of you in the room sit at dinner or a meal and take photos of your meal? Which is great. Raise your hands. How many of you are at a dinner table with a loved one, your partner, your child, and they or you are in your phone rather than having a conversation, a dialogue as a loved one, as a parent with them, saying, how was your day? Are you doing okay? Like, are you having problems? Can I help you with anything? Most of the time, we're caught up in this whirlwind of social media. And it's us, as we think about designers, we need to think about how do we disrupt this into everything that we bring into the future going forward. So please understand this. It's our responsibility to deliver everything going forward for the future generation, not for those that are coming beforehand, because it's with this methodology and mentality of designing for permanence, planned obsolescence, so it doesn't end up at the top of an e-waste pile every 2 years. Love plays a huge story arc in everything that I do. We think about when we engage into designing something, we like to be able to pull on the heartstrings of those that we intend them for. Empathy, deep empathy, that dance of love, plays a role in the story we craft as it relates to out-of-the-box experience, or another term that I'll get to in just a moment. This is an example of me doing deep ethnographic research. I'm actually going out into the field with a product that I'm working on and randomly pulling strangers aside and saying, would you like to hold this in your hand? Can you tell me how you feel about this? How does it emotionally, not even how does it emotionally make you feel, you could see for themselves how they loved holding this product and how emotionally moving it was for them. That's what I encourage all of you to do. Don't live inside of your design studio. Don't live inside of your nomadic place of operation, a coffee house. Get out, talk to people, meet people, don't be shy, put things into their hands, get services in front of their eyes so that you can get real feedback. The products that they were holding were a new revolutionary mobile phone, a round mobile phone with a round screen and a round interface that was made out of natural hardwoods. It was unlike anything they had ever felt before. And you can get validation on these designs, and you can get a lot of critical input into your work by going out into the field and being being a high empath to get into the hearts and minds of your customers. So with this love story, I like to say that there's dramatic tension in the y-axis, and there's a beginning and an end to each of our stories of the products that we craft and the services that we create. I like to call this a love story. Sometimes we end up lonely, or we may start in a lonely place. And when we're designing a product, we notice that there's a need. Loneliness is that we understand through insight that there's an opportunity for something that can be either refined, evolved, or created. You then start this journey, and as an out-of-the-box experience, as a love story, as a first kiss, you then meet this product. And probably one of the best experiences that really set the tone for many of us is when Amazon introduced the Kindle for the very first time. You got this device, and when you opened it up, it knew who we were. It said, "Hello, Ana," because they had thought through that entire first moment of receiving it, actually anticipating to receive it, receiving it, opening it, turning it on, and embracing it. And the goal for us as we maintain this story arc is how do we make sure that after the first kiss, it doesn't drop and we fell out of love with the relationship of the actual experience or object, especially if it's going to maintain a state of permanence in our lives, other people's lives. We need to make sure that this embrace and this first kiss is sustaining and can live on to the point where planned obsolescence, planning for end of life for a particular experience or product, then can bring back love with its next ideation or improvement in a particular space. So, having used this methodology for pretty much the duration of my entire career, 26 years in design, ongoing, I recently started rethinking about how can we apply this language of love and also expanding it into leveraging the languages of love, which is a therapeutic approach to how we as humans connect and communicate with one another. Each one of ourselves really speaks a different language, an emotional language, a need that we anticipate from our partner or we need to give to those that we love. How many of you in the room have heard of the languages of love? How many of you, okay, a couple of people, you're about to learn what they are. this is a methodology of communicating with your partner that's pretty much worldwide. But it was originally started in 1985 by Gary Chapman, who was a relationships therapist that had defined and refined these terminologies. There's a new expanded vocabulary of these languages of love, and this is what I'm going to talk to you about today. These languages are physical touch, quite literally what you think it would be. Quality time, words of affirmation, receiving gifts, acts of service, acts of solidarity and belief, acts of emotional labor, and commitment to personal healing and growth. Now, I think that each of these methodologies, each of these practices of the language of love can be applied to your product design. I'm going to use as an example of each of these existing products that either I've worked with, I've touched, or how I see it might play a role into all of our future product design efforts as we move forward. So the first one, let's talk about physical touch. Clothing that we wear is very intimate. Anything that's an object that we put into our bodies, that we put onto our bodies, like our gold winner recipient and a toothbrush, we need to figure out and feel and design for what that physical tactile feeling is going to be. How does it drape? How does it flow? How does it make us feel? In the case of this clothing as an example, color, material, and finishing from an ID perspective is incredibly important, I believe, to that of doing user experience design within a screen. I and my teams believe that Milan Salone, every year, as new products in architecture and lighting and color material finishing come out, play a huge role into the fashion industry, the object industry, architecture and furniture, but then also our home and lifestyle products, our electronics that we bring into our lives. It's very secular, it's very seasonal based, and I think that we should fall back and look to this industry and these non-traditional digital user experience design methodologies to play a huge role into defining what the future of online services is going to be. Quality time, like the example I was giving all of you, you're with your loved one, your child, and your faces in your phone. That's not quality time. Quality time is being able to be unplugged, removed, relaxing, and that is not an easy feat. If you go to a place of resort, a beach, a mountain, a lake, you want to make sure that you are really sort of enjoying that experiential environment. And a lot of places now that are designed for that, there's a lot of thought and effort that goes into it. In particular, if you go to a resort, a lot of thought is given into what is the human interaction points, how often do you even see people that are staying there. And one of the best examples that I've experienced is a chain called Aman. Aman resorts are around the world, and they, in particular the one that I've been to, designed itself where it can be completely sold out, but as you're walking around, you never see another family or couple that's there, because it's designed to make you feel like you are spending quality time, you are isolated, and you are unplugged. This is something that I think that if any of you have an opportunity to go try out, go explore, just visit the premises of these resorts, if you happen to be in a country that has one, and see for yourself what it actually feels like. Walk into the new Marriott that's down the street here. Visit with some of these new sort of environments that are coming up and experience them for yourselves. Words of affirmation. So, I love you, how are you doing today? These things, these verbal love and affectionate communication mechanisms are important also in the digital space. If we think about how words of affirmation can be used, think about bots, think about AI, how AI will be used to communicate and do the sort of daily conversations that we have. Facebook M is one example. How many of you in the room have seen the movie Her? A few of you, right? So that is where I believe the future is heading. We are moving towards a deeply AI rich environment that doesn't have a traditional visual user interface. It's all natural language. And the inverse, where the communication of the AI will become so good, it's like having a conversation with an intimate, close best friend, and how they will describe things back to you, and how you will be open up and make yourself even more vulnerable having these conversations with these individuals. Receiving gifts. Receiving gifts is actually a language of love. Some people don't like to receive gifts. They like to have your trash taken out. Some people like to be bought things or have things given to them. And in this case, with the frame project, we wanted to make sure that it was serendipitous, it was beautiful, that like you came home and there's a new piece of artwork that you might have subscribed to with the channel of a particular photographic architectural artist or a contemporary artist. And so this is a new way where you could play and weave into how you might gift things, how you might surprise by allowing individuals to receive something they never would have anticipated or had not planned for. This is where the receiving gifts aspect comes into play that you might want to consider in your future product design. Acts of service, doing things for one another, like I just mentioned, taking out the trash, giving someone a massage, having a meal cooked for you, having a meal brought to you. There's an incredibly powerful spitfire of a woman, a fellow female entrepreneur in San Francisco named Lisa Fetterman, dear friend, and probably one of the most prolific, self-funded, self-taught individuals that's come out of the Asia region into the Silicon Valley in probably the last 15 years. She has a new service and a product called Nomiku. And her product revolves around how do you enable a mother, a single mother, a family that's incredibly busy with child activities or other activities to provide a very healthy and frequent meal program. And so not only does she deliver a service that allows you to get meals that are pre-cooked by a Michelin star chef at a very affordable price point, she also allows you to use a technology called sous vide. It's a precision temperature cooking technique that typically would have been used in French culinary kitchens, Michelin star kitchens, to precisely cook, keeping vitamins and all the nutrients intact within the meal at a delicious experience, but for everyone. She's democratized this technology. And this is an idea and an example of, as an acts of service, you can deliver a new product, take existing technology or a technique such as the sous vide cooking method, and then also include an amazing pre-bundled service that can go along with it. I encourage all of you to check this out. This is pretty amazing. Acts of solidarity and belief. This is where you are with others that are like yourselves, that also help you when you have issues and you want to talk about certain things or be more productive with those that are like-minded. There is a new platform service that I just personally experienced, and this is actually something that I use on a daily basis, and it's called Workplace. It's basically Facebook for a company, an internal company. It's a product that we make, and I'm not here to promote the product, but what I'm here to say is that I was not expecting this. When I joined the company, this was an amazing employee service. I can go, and as a mother, I can find solidarity and support from other mothers that are inside of Facebook, women entrepreneurs, women designers, women professionals at Facebook. There's a site and section for them. Trans women, there's a site and section for them. Queer and LGBTQ, there's a site and section for them. And it's an amazing resource for all employees. And we use this not only as a source of solidarity and communication, but we use it also as a communication platform internally for design review and for communications. This is, it was nice. It was nice to really have this. And I think that if we think about solidarity, designing for solidarity and belief, this is a great example. Medium, the platform of blogging and publishing, self-publishing, is another great example of that. Acts of emotional labor. Acts of emotional labor is a language where you do something for someone that usually psychologically, emotionally stresses and taxes an individual. It's not something that I think any of us should do for another person per se, unless they're incredibly intimate, but this is something that a lot of people want and expect. How many of the men in the room know of the term active listening? Good laughs, yeah. Women, I think we know what this is. So this is the act of you being actively present and listening and sort of acknowledging what is being said. Now, it's very difficult when we ask a friend or a business colleague to do this, or we expect this of them. That's an act of emotional labor that I think is not very nice. But AI may take us to an area where we don't need to do that. We don't need to put the physical, the emotional burden onto someone else that we love, or as a friend, or merely a colleague that we've met once or twice, but we can put it into the cloud and into the computer. And I think that's an amazing use for artificial intelligence. Lastly, commitment to personal healing and growth. This is something that doesn't require technology. All of us as creatives, as business people, as engineers, we need to make sure that we take time to love and care for ourselves. Stop working 14-hour days. Don't work weekends. Your managers and the companies that you work for should not ask this of you. Be efficient for the 5-hour, 6-hour, 8-hour workday you do, but be sure when you leave the office at 6 o'clock, at 5 o'clock, don't check email. Invest in yourself. Personal well-being and growth. Do not check email on the weekends. Spend the time with your loved ones and your children and your family. And don't, managers in the room, I'm guilty of this at one point in my career. Don't send email to your employees at 3 in the morning. It's not nice. That's an act of emotional labor you should not be putting on anyone. So with that, I like to say that's how I think we can adapt these new expanded languages of love into the creative process. And to wrap this all up, what we're doing here, we can then communicate and influence and drive the future of culture by applying these methodologies and figuring out how we can blend them into our environments so that we can change the status quo of what culture should be and define what culture is going to be with these new thoughts. Because what we're doing is we're designing for the future. We're designing for trust. And it's this future generation that we need to think about and be deeply empathetic about and protect. With that, I'd like to say thank you very much.